Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today we're going to be working on my apple tree. The last time I worked on this tree was 2 months ago, where I did the first work in almost 5 years. The tree almost died. If you come around here, you can see all these branches that are dead at the back. And it had one live section, or one live vein coming up the tree. And I let that grow unrestricted for about 5 years to thicken it up, get vigor back in the tree. And so this year, 2 months ago, I did the first work on it in like 5 years, pruning the big tall leaders off. And the tree reacted really well, putting out new shoots. Today I'm going to do more pruning on the tree, getting a better branch structure, and getting it underway again as a nice bonsai. Before I start pruning, I'm going to wash down all my tools that I use with a rather strong mixture of soap and water. Like that. In the last video, I mentioned out front there was a branch sticking straight towards the viewer, and either rabbits or squirrels had chewed off that branch, and it did regrow. You can see it out front here. So I don't think I want that branch anyway. It's not in a good position. So I'll begin the pruning by removing that branch. The branch is coming out the front here. I'll rotate it around, so hopefully you can see the base of it down here. And I'll come in with my branch cutters and prune it off flush. Like that. I'm washing down my tools between each cut so I don't transfer the possibility of disease from one part of the tree to another. The next branch I want to look at is the one coming up front here. And I left this one to grow just in case everything else died, and then I would have like a leader to the tree. And I thought, well, maybe I can kind of bend it back into the old rotted trunk and, you know, give the tree a new beginning. But I do have a live vein off to the left hand side here that's growing up as my new leader, so I don't really need this branch out front. However, I don't want to remove it entirely because it is a good insurance policy. In case every other part of the tree dies, I will always have a living part out front here. So I don't want to remove the branch totally, but I do want to reduce it down so it's, you know, maybe just a short little branch coming out the front of the tree. I have a couple of leaves here, some here, so pruning it right here would be a good place. And there's a branch that goes back towards the middle of the tree. So I'll start by pruning it just off to this height here. So here I go with that cut. Like that. So that tall branch is gone. I'll also come in and reduce this whip of a branch that goes back towards the tree. I'll reduce that back too. So I'm going to come into here and take the tip off. There's a shoot coming out to the side that's getting long, so I'll cut that back also. Again, I'm not going to kill it off. I'm just going to reduce it back like that. I'm going to prune the branch on the right hand side next. It's quite vigorous. It looks like I cut it off and it's divided from 1 into at least 3. So I'll work on that next. That branch on the right hand side here, you can see where I cut it off right here. And it's divided from 1 into 4. There's 4 new shoots coming up. So I've got to pick my best ones. And they will be ones that flow nicely. You can see the original branch comes off at about a 45-degree angle here. So I want branches that kind of continue flowing with that first branch. I don't want really upright kinks or anything in it. So I'll definitely remove the one that's on the inside, keeping this nice one up front here. And I'll probably keep the one at the back also, So remove those two vertical ones that are shooting up here. I'll clean my tools again. And then I'll come in and remove those ones on the inside that are growing vertical. I'll just prune them off roughly at first. There's the first one, the second one, and then I'll come in and make a nice flush cut. Like that. And then I'll also reduce these branches down. They're getting quite long. So I'll prune them and I'll look for outward facing leaves. So I'll prune this one here. And this one right to here. So I got outward facing leaves so the new branches will fan outwards nicely. This back branch on the tree was the least affected by the fire blight it had. And it's always grown strongly, so I can do a lot of pruning on this back branch to try and take your eye off this big foliage mass here and direct it more on the main part of the tree. Most of the new shoots on the right hand side and that back branch have grown enough that I can prune them right back to the first or second set of leaves depending on what direction they're facing. So I'll do that, and I'll make sure I clean my tools between cuts. I don't want, any rust or anything being transferred around the tree. Try and keep fruit trees as clean as possible. You can see the tree has more of a tree-like form now. I think I still need to do some cleaning up at the back. I've got that back branch that kind of goes behind the trunk, and it kind of jumbly in that area. So I think there's a lot of large leaves on this side that I need to remove, and maybe check out the branch structure also. I'll rotate the tree around and we can look at that area. So you can see there is a big branch that kind of comes up and then droops down and goes behind the trunk. And I'm going to have a good look at it before I do any pruning. It is an interesting branch, but it does seem to compete with the main trunk of the tree. I think I've got to keep, this side of the tree separate from the main trunk. I had a good look at this branch. So there's a shoot here. I could reduce this whole part of the branch back if I wanted to keep it. Yeah, I just don't like it going back behind the main trunk here. I want the focus of the tree to be the trunk and the rotted remains of the trunk, so not this back branch. And right now, that's pretty well all you see is that back branch because it's so full and vigorous. So definitely some branch reduction to that back branch to get it so it doesn't compete quite so much with the main apex. I think I'm going to take that branch right off. It doesn't flow nicely. So I'll come in and prune it right flush. Like that. That's much better. There is another branch here that is the same problem. It crosses the trunk, so I'm going to remove that one also. Yeah. So I'll come in here and make a flush cut. Like that. At the back there is a branch that has a dead branch. So I think I want to prune that off. I want my deadwood to be on the trunk. I don't want deadwood back here that distracts your eye from the main trunk of the tree. So I'm going to remove that dead branch back here. All right, here I go. So that branch is right here. I'll come in and prune it off like that. I'm just looking to see if there's any more dead branches. Tip of that one was dead. The rest all look okay. I want the apex on this tree to stay strong and thicken up and grow with lots of vigor. So I'm not going to touch the apex. I'm going to let those grow for the rest of the summer. And then next spring, I'll prune those back to size and get further branching and eventually form a canopy on this tree. In the pot here, I've got 2 little cedars that grew from seeds, and I better remove those before they get too big. And these cedars, a lot of people have mentioned that you know, you get apple rust from cedar trees, and these Thuya occidentalis, the eastern white cedars, they don't transfer rust to the apple trees. It's only the red cedars, the western cedars, that can transfer rust disease to the fruit trees. So they're safe there, but I am going to remove them, even though this is a terrible time of year to repot a cedar, but I've got to get them out of there. I've also got a lot of weeding to do in this pot. I'm growing all these little cedars as straight upright trees, and they may eventually replace some of the trees in my Avatar Grove planting to make those tall, upright, vertical, old growth looking cedar trees. Trying to find the root base to these trees. Just kind of gently lifting on the tree as I rake out the roots and trying to free all those roots up. I don't know how old these little cedar trees are. I think they're maybe 3 years old now. I'm going to pull on it now. I've got most of the roots freed. There, that's got most of the root system. So I'll put that in water and then replant it. Now I'll try and get out the other little cedar. It's a little bit smaller. I've got a lot of those Irish moss. Terrible stuff to have in a bonsai pot. So I'll have to get rid of all that too. I got some serious weeding to do in this pot. And most of that is because I haven't repotted it in a long time. If you repot trees every 2 or 3 years, you know, you get a lot of the weeds out because you're putting new soil in them. Especially if you bare root the trees. New soil around them, and you know, your weed problem stays under control. Your older trees that you haven't repotted in a long time tend to get a lot of weeds in the old soil, and they can be really hard to get rid of. And some of the roots go really deep. Okay, I'm gonna try pulling on this one now. Oh, it's quite firm in there, but it's coming. There, so I got most of that root system too. So I'll put that in water just until I get time to repot them into little pots. I'm going to give the tree some water and fertilizer now, and that might soften the soil up so I can make it a little easier to pull out all these weeds. They're all over this side, so it's going to be quite a challenge. All right, here I go with the water. Give it a good throw soaking. Okay, that water is pouring out the drainage holes. I think that is thoroughly soaked. The roots on this Irish moss go really deep into the soil. So I found the best strategy is to try and find the base of the plant and then dig in with your tweezers and try and pull it out, roots and all. And you won't get every one out properly, but hopefully if you get half of them, it makes the weeding job easier next time. You just got to keep at it. So here's the root base of this one. I think I might have to peel away some of this moss here first. Finding the base of the plant is hard. There, I think I got that one out. Another one here. You can see all the flowers forming on the moss, and that's just going to create more moss, a more denser patch of moss that'll just be a bigger problem in the future. So I try and keep up on this Irish moss, getting rid of it, but this tree kind of went out of control. And that's probably because I was growing the tree, so it never really got cleaned up very well for shows or display or anything. So just kind of sat in the corner growing and getting weedy. Around the back of the tree here, I've got a bit of sawdust, so there's something living in the dead wood of this tree, and I can see a bit of sawdust up top here. So I did see some small ants out the front, so it could be an ant colony living in the dead trunk here. So I'll try and clean it up, and maybe the soap and water, if I squirt it into the dead wood here, it might drain down and the ants will leave the trunk and keep my dead wood a little longer. I've got all my weeding done. Let's go in and have a look now. Here's a look at the base of the tree, and I'll rotate it around. I had to remove most of the moss to get that Irish moss off. You can see the nice root base forming on the tree. Around the back here. So my next job, I'm going to scrape. You can see there's a lot of soil left by the moss that was on top. Organic matter that's kind of clogging up the top surface of the soil. So I'll scrape that away with the root rake, and then I'll put a top dressing of fresh bonsai soil on the surface. All right, let's start raking away the old soil. I just need to do the top layer. And I don't have to go very deep. It's getting into the good soil now. A good bonsai soil. And that's looking good like that. I will get my toothbrush and just brush away any lichen or moss from the roots. Clean those up a bit. And that's looking good like that. I'll add the new bonsai soil now. Now I'll level it out. And I want the top of my soil level to be just below the lip of the pot. So that looks good. I'll give it another watering. All right, here I go with the water. I'm standing back now looking at the overall design, and I think that branch towards the back there is too long. I think it spreads out too far. I'll rotate it around so you can see it more from the side view. So there, from more of the side view, you can see how far it extends back. So I think I've got to push that back. So do some pruning to those back branches to shorten them. All right, let's have a look now. I'll just clean my tools again with soap and water. And looking for a place I can cut these branches back. So I can take this one off here. There's another branch underneath it. So I'll take this part off like that. That shortens that branch. I can shorten this one even more. Take it off here. Do some more cleaning. This one can be shortened to here. There's a branch here. You can see there's two major branches coming off of here. And then there's another one that goes underneath this other branch. So I'll remove that one that's crossing there. It's not in a good position. Or I'm wondering if maybe I'd be better to remove this one because it does come in. They do converge at the tip here. So I could keep this other one that crosses underneath and this one. Get rid of that one maybe. I think I'll do that. I think that would be a better approach to remove this one. So here I go. Like that. So that solved that problem. I could probably shorten this one back to here too. So I'll do that. We will shorten it to here. Like that. Now let's step back and have a look at the length of these back branches. The back branches look a lot better. I may have to reduce them further in the future if I get more budding kind of on top of the branches. So I'll rotate it back to the front. This dead wood on the tree, I don't want to treat it or anything because it's getting soft. And what will happen is that roots will grow from the living part of the tree into this rotted section. So sometimes you get some really fantastic kind of root formations that eventually get exposed as the wood rots away, and you get a really interesting trunk line to the tree. So that's the reason I'm not treating that wood. I'm just, letting it rot away naturally. That's all the work I'll be doing on my apple bonsai for today. It's time now for today's updates. My first update for today is my Nightshade Vine. It needs pruning. The vine has grown nice and tall, and I think I'll prune it off somewhere down here. I want to get movement in the trunk. I don't just want it to be a straight trunk. I want it to have slight subtle movement and changes of direction and taper, so I'm going to prune it off quite short and probably remove a lot of these suckers at the base. I'll remove the rocks that were holding the plant into the pot when I repotted it. And you can see all the roots that are growing underneath those rocks. And the vine is really stable in the pot now, so I can remove those rocks permanently. I'm going to find a spot to prune the trunk off now. Just like that. Next, I'll clean up all these suckers at the base, just leaving my single trunk line. The leader is getting a little strong here, so I would like to grow all these branches equally, so I'll trim back the leader, shortening it, like that, to an outward facing leaf. And next, I'll dig around at the trunk, the root base, and just see what's happening there. It looks like it's getting a nice radial root base at the base there. The little Nightshade bonsai is coming along nice. I really like it. I'll give it a water with a bit of fertilizer in the water and put it back on the bench. The second update for today is my Redwood tree. I've got it out and I was looking at the leaf pattern on it and they seem to be alternating, which leads me to believe this is a Bald Cypress and not a Dawn Redwood. So I think I now have a Bald Cypress, which is pretty cool. Here's a look at those leaf patterns so you can see the leaves aren't opposite each other, they're staggered along the branch. So yeah, I'm quite sure this is a Bald Cypress. And the trunk texture reminds me of a Bald Cypress too. So I don't know. I guess I'll see as this tree develops. I'll know for sure, but for now I think I'll have to change the name of it to a Bald Cypress and not a Dawn Redwood. My next update is my Princess Earrings Bonsai. It's been growing really well. It's got a flower, or a couple of flowers forming on it. I think they're flowers. Yeah, definitely flowers. You can see them hanging down like earrings. It has a dead branch at the back that I think I'm going to prune off, and there may be a dead branch coming out the side that needs to be pruned off also. It's put on a lot of vigorous growth down low here, a lot of new shoots coming out the trunk. So I'm just going to do a cleanup to it, removing a lot of that dead wood, and we'll come back and see how it looks. There's a close-up look at the flower bud. You can see it beside my finger there for size. Yeah, should look quite nice when it comes out. I've rotated the tree around, so here's this dead branch. It starts at the trunk here. This part of it's dead, the upper part's dead. And the reason I know it's dead is that it was dead last summer and nothing came off it this summer, so I'm quite sure it's dead. You have to be careful on these trees because sometimes branches that look dead aren't actually dead, but this one's been 2 years now with no new growth, so I'm quite safe to prune it off. So here I go. All right, just like that. You can see how brittle that branch is. It's definitely dead. I'm going to prune this branch that's extended off the trunk. It's getting too long and I need to prune it back to there. My soil level is a little high in the pot, so I'm just going to get rid of some of the surface soil. Right now when you water the tree, it just runs off. I think I just planted the tree with lots of soil on top to make sure it would survive the repotting, which it did quite nicely. That's a little better soil level now. I'll prune off the remaining dead branches now. That's got it pruned back. I'll give the tree a watering now. I'll keep you updated. When the flowers come out, I'll be sure to include that in a video update. Jonathon was in town. I stopped in for a visit. We social distance, of course.
These thorns are unbelievable.
They're sharp too.
Oh my goodness.
I always leave the thorns on my trees. You can pick them off, but I thought it's part of the tree, the characteristics of the tree. So
there's my favorite tree, the birch, and it's going to be, look at it, it's just bursting everywhere.
I think it'll do all right.
The bunnies never took it out.
No,
it's going to be a good one. And this and the bark, I'll bet in 2 years that looks like about a 3-year-old tree.
Yeah.
2 years it'll be moving on to white.
Oh, it'll be nice to see.
Oh yeah. That reminds me so much of a tree that I saw in Catania, Sicily.
Oh yeah.
Last summer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It had roots this big dropping down from its branches. Wow. And swirling around the trunk.
Yeah.
It was absolutely gorgeous.
That's cool.
And then the olive tree, that's the one that blew me away. A 600-year-old olive tree. My sister and I could not put our arms around the trunk.
Is that
and
right?
It was in the village of Agrigento, which is a Greek village from 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
It has more beautiful architecture than in Greece.
Is that right?
It is.
Wow.
Like if you ever go to Sicily, man, you've
Yep.
got to go to Agrigento. It was just fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I planted a couple of the seeds this summer, or this spring, under a light, and I've got 2 cypress trees this big.
Oh wow.
In blue. They're like a blue spruce.
Yeah.
When they come up young. So I'm praying I can cultivate these 2 trees from my first and only trip to Italy.
Oh, that's cool.
To something here in Canada. I just have to figure out how to keep them alive over winter.
Oh, good.
I won't leave them outside, that's for sure.
No. Cool. Last year, Jonathon and I worked on his birch forest here in the backyard, and he was over visiting, and he's also sent me an update to the forest, how it looks today. I was just explaining that's the reason you're building the screen house. Yeah. So here's an update on Laura's screen house over here. It is getting close to completion. So it's all screened in. She's working on the door over here. Let's go around here. Here's the door to get in. She's already got some trees in there. And the reason she built this cool screen house is to keep the birds and the rabbits and the mice and everything away from her fruit trees, so they can grow in here without anything picking away at the fruit or chewing on the trunks. So you can see down here, she's run the wire mesh all the way down to the ground, and then it'll get backfilled with soil and wood chips. And the bottom of the screen house will get covered in wood chips too. And someday it'll have nice trees growing in it. And I think she's going to add some shelving to this back wall too, so you can start seeds in here without worrying about the birds coming in and picking away all the seeds out of your seed trays. So it's going to be really good. It would be nice to have like a safe zone for the trees. Laura's extended her hardware cloth out from the base of the screen house So nothing should be able to dig underneath. It'd be quite a feat if they did dig all the way from the edge of the hardware cloth all the way inside. So it should be quite secure. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone. Survived everything Mother Nature's thrown at it. Everything. God. That's all the work I'll be doing on my... The older trees you haven't repotted in a long time, they tend to get a lot of roots in them. Not a lot of roots. Your older trees that you haven't repotted in a long time, they tend to get a lot of weeds in the root system. Your older trees that you haven't repotted in a long time tend to get a lot of weeds in the old soil.